Are you still into architecture? I mean, do you have time on this trip to see a couple things?
I don't have any time to see anything really. This is like a whirlwind kind of press tour. Um, when I was in high school, I was, I took mechanical drawing, and that was one of my dreams at one point, but it only lasted through high school. But it's great that you bring that up because in a lot of our travels, we do go and check out architecture. Jim Pugh, our keyboard player, and myself, sometimes we talk about this, the buildings and things like that we see.
Because there will be a lot to see in Vienna.
I've been to Vienna before, so I've seen a lot of buildings and whatnot, but not on this trip.
So it was never, I mean, of course, you have to practice, you have to play, you have to perform. I mean, there's not that much time to study architecture aside.
No, there really isn't. There's like you said, there's a sound check. You have to go make sure that you get something decent to eat, and then you have the show, and then normally you leave town that same night.
You're friends with Eric Clapton since, let's say, early 80s. Do you remember when you first met him?
I do. And we met on the stage of the Montreux Jazz Festival. And it had been planned that we were going to do some touring with Eric. And that was when he had the band that had Greg Gaines, Nathan East, and Phil Collins was playing drums. And I was sitting on the lip of the stage after sound check, holding my guitar, and Claude Nobbs, who runs the Montreux Festival, came from backstage with a cassette of Eric's version of the song "Bad Influence" that I had written with a good friend of mine, and he says he just recorded it for his new album. I said, "Wow, that's great! I didn't know anything about it, And then a few minutes later, Eric comes from backstage because he was to perform on the festival as well, and he sat on the lip of the stage, and that was the first time that we met, and we chatted for a little bit, and I was holding my guitar, and he asked to see it, and he grabbed my guitar, and he started fooling around with it, and we sat and we chatted, and that was the beginning of the friendship.
So it's not like that he has to ask you, hey, can I cover your song? He's Eric Clapton. He can cover whatever he wants, right?
Well, I mean, it's like that works basically for a lot of people. I mean, you could ask permission, but most people think that it's a compliment when somebody records one of your songs, and for it to be a surprise makes it even better.
And of course, if it's Eric Clapton,
who's going to complain?
but when did you start then actually working together? I mean, you did play a lot of shows.
We played a lot of shows, and actually we played some shows on that tour in Europe, and then we went to Japan. And then it was in 1990 that I was invited to work on the Journeyman record with Eric, and we recorded in New York, and we also did television in New York, so that was great. We did a lot of songs. I played on like almost about half the record on that Journeyman record, and we also co-wrote the song "Old Love" together.
You play generally Fender guitars. When did you fall in love with that instrument? Is there some initial experience?
There is an initial experience, and it was in the late 70s. So I think it was like 1979, and I was living in Eugene, Oregon, in the States, and I went to a concert, and on that show was the brother of Buddy Guy, Phil, who just passed away more recently. He was playing on a Stratocaster, and he was playing through a Fender Super Reverb amplifier with just the right amount of reverb on it. And it was a big room, and so it just had this really clear, glassy kind of bright sound. And I loved it. I thought it was the coolest sound I ever heard. And at that time I was playing on a Gibson ES 345 stereo. And I went in search of a Stratocaster, and luckily, in the newspaper there was an ad for a Stratocaster that was a 1964, and the guy was selling it for like $700, and he had a little pig nose amplifier. It was a little practice amp.
Oh, cool.
With it, and I got it, and I still have it. I don't play it anymore. pretty beat up, but that was it.
Well, you already have your own, I guess, two signatures,
Right.
Robert CRAY Stratocasters.
Right now, now I play the custom shop model Stratocaster, and we also have a signature series Stratocaster, both by Fender and the custom shop model came out in the early '90s, and then I think the signature series is coming up to 10 years old now.
You had the opportunity, we were speaking about Eric Clapton, but more than that, you had the opportunity to really play and work with blues legends like Albert Collins, John Lee Hooker. Tell us about those experiences.
Albert Collins is one who really pretty much gave us a nice start, and we had a lot of opportunities to play some big shows with Albert Collins. One of which was the 1977 San Francisco Blues Festival, where we for the first time got major press in the San Francisco Chronicle newspaper. And it was also at that same time, the next day after that performance, that we ran into the two men who would be our producers. They came to see us at a local show in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Yeah. And Bruce Bromberg and Dennis Walker. And we went on to record the following year in 1978 the songs that would turn out to be our first album, Who's Been Talking, that quickly disappeared, low budget. And then after that, we did the Bad Influence record, False Accusations, Strong Persuader, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, and Midnight Stroll together. Mm-hmm.
How does it feel? Do you put it aside who that guy really is, or the moment you work with him?
With Albert Collins, no. He was very influential. I saw him for the first time before I graduated high school. I saw him at a rock festival. And to me, it was amazing. He played guitar behind his back. I'd never seen anybody do that. He walked out into the crowd, with his long guitar cable before wireless and all that. And one really cool thing is we had Albert Collins play our high school graduation party, and our class voted for him. There was a choice between a rock and roll band who had a song in the top 40 on the radio, and Albert Collins, who hadn't had a song on the radio, but had been playing pretty much the area where we lived, which was south of Seattle, Washington State. And so Albert played our party, and I walked up and said hi to him, and he says, "Young man, you play guitar?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Well, keep it up." And so that was the first time I met him. 4 to 5 years later, we were backing him up, and that's when we were, for a period of about a year and a half, working up and down the West Coast in the States. And part of, one of those gigs was the San Francisco Blues Festival. Years went by, and we were with an agency based out of San Francisco, and we were connected with that agency, and so was John Lee Hooker. And we were able to, in the future, do a lot of shows with John Lee Hooker, and also to record with him, and meet the guy. He was a great gentleman.
Coming back to Albert Collins, it reminds me of Gary Moore. Have you ever met Gary Moore?
I think that I've met him once. It's been a long time ago. And Albert Collins talked about him because Albert worked with him.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was on the Still Got the Blues record. I'm not sure.
Albert was, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Gary Moore got big with hard rock and heavy metal, 70s, early 80s. And when he started recording blues records, he constantly said he hates hard rock and heavy metal. How do you see those offsprings of blues, put it that way?
In that kind of style that he did it in?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's everybody who plays the blues these days is influenced by a lot of other music as well. I mean, I think most musicians listen to more than just the music that they play. At least that's, I think, a healthy thing to do. You have to know what's going on around you. I mean, you don't have to like everything, but at least I know more. I know for myself I mean, I like a lot of different kinds of music, and you learn from a lot of different kinds of music, and you know, all kinds of creative ideas. Different instrumentalists, saxophones, pianos, drums, bass. I listen to it all. You know, you get ideas from all those different. So yeah, it's cool. You can do blues with your hard rock style. We do blues with our soul style and everything else that we mix up in it.
For people who have no clue, just shortly explain what blues means for rock and roll musically.
Well, blues is the roots of rock and roll, you know, and you know, and I think that's how rock and roll happened, by, you know, guys going up there playing blues, and it gets, you know, like, you know, you're playing, and when you're playing, you're not really, you're just playing, and I think that, you know, amplifiers came into fashion, people cranked them up, started dancing, and rock and roll happened.
In 2011, you got inducted in the Blues Hall of Fame. What does that mean to you?
It means to me that the work that we've done means something a lot to those who felt that it was important to put us into the Hall of Fame. You know, everybody says that we opened a lot of doors when we became popular, back to the music and to bring the blues out a little bit more, and so I think that's the reason. So that's nice.
Something different in about 10 years ago. You were already a 5-time Grammy Award winner, but had no record contract then. What happened? What went through your mind then? Is the world crazy?
Well, I wasn't really worried, because by the time that we had finished, we did 7 records for Phonogram, Mercury in the States, and that was coming to the end, and we signed with a major independent in the States called Rykodisc, and we did 2 records with them. And then after that, we signed with a label called Sanctuary. And then when Sanctuary went under, we decided at that point to start my own label, and we had major distribution on that. But it's a whole different thing because when you're running your label, you have to do all the promo work and stuff like that. So that was pretty much nil. But we were out working and everything like that, so it's good. Yeah.
So no worry at any time.
No, we weren't worried. No.
There's another thing. I mean, you're known as a solo artist, but fact is, your band members are the same for years now, right?
Right. For the longest time, Jim Pugh, our keyboard player, has been in the band since 1989. Richard Cousins, our bass player, who's just returned in 2008, it was he and I that started the band in 1974. Richard and I go back to, go back to 1969 when we first met, so I've known him, 40 years. And then our drummer, Tony Bronigal, is the newest member of the band. So, but it's always been, even former members of the band had been in the band close to 20 years, so it's that kind of thing where I think you build this cohesive unit where, knowing one another for a long period of time gives you that, that what you need to make good music. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because people usually think, well, yeah, blues guitarists, they can walk on stage and play with whoever, I mean, it might be that way, but, of course, it's better you're connected.
It's always better to be connected. So, I mean, to me, it wouldn't be the same, standing in front of an audience with a few sympathetic guys you don't even know, It's just, it doesn't work. It's not making good music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hi, this is Robert CRAY, and you're watching MULATSCHAG, the only TV you need.
MULATSCHAG!